New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert hiding behind the banner there. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. And we have today with us, this is Ministers Talking Shit for Friday. We have with us today special guest, Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, who I can't call him a regular on this program just yet, but we're working on it, folks. Trust me, we're working on it. So, Brother Raymont, how are you doing this morning, sir?
Doing exceptionally well, and yourself?
Oh, doing well, and a little mournful, I think, for the United States. We're gonna talk about that today, folks. So if you're watching live and want to chat along, chime along, drop your comments in the comment box. We would love to hear from you as we go today. And by all means, please feel free to share this with your friends and family. Hit those like, share, and subscribe type buttons. So we're going to dive right into it because this is a huge topic. And I think it takes us in a lot of different directions. And I'm really grateful for Reverend Raymont because I reached out last night after having watched the presidential debate and said, hey, you want to come on Ministers tomorrow morning? Rev Z is traveling, by the way, so unable to be with us. Sending love and appreciation to him if he does happen to be watching. But last night was the presidential debate, and oh my God, I found myself calling him, using the term Sleepy Joe. Like, just like, whoa, how in the heck did that come out? So it was I gotta say, it was one of the worst debates I've ever seen. And it really sort of pained me for the choice that we're left with here in America at this point. And we've brought ourselves here, and we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit as well. One of the guiding lights of the evening is, I will say, I turned on Facebook after the debate, and there was Brother Raymont praying live, doing the thing that I love to do. And I was sitting there going, why didn't I think of that? And because God was doing it through Reverend Raymont last night. And so welcome aboard. Initial thoughts, initial responses to last night.
Initial thoughts. We have been living in this house for quite some time without recognizing that the foundation of the house is crumbling. And now that we see cracked walls and a broken roof and leaky pipes, etc., many of us are left reeling like, oh my God, what do we do now? And it's a major call for action. Like, it's a major wake-up call to say, so rather than simply pointing, one of the things I said last night, rather than just pointing to the leaks, rather than just pointing to the broken foundation, when do we come to, especially us in New Thought, who have a tendency to metaphysical malpractice and bypass. How do we address the foundation beyond just thoughts and prayers? Like literally, how do we reestablish not what democracy was, because the democracy that was is what brought us to this choice.
Right.
It's time for democracy 4.0, where we're actually addressing the issues that came up in debate, and we're actually fixing them and healing them, etc. So yeah, initial response, it was a very interesting carnival sideshow in many ways, and it left me nauseated and frustrated and motivated.
There we go. Well, frustrated sounds a little bit better than nauseated, that's for sure. And motivated, I recognize, is absolutely better than frustrated. I applaud you. Coming away motivated is, I think, a really important thing there, because I did turn on Facebook and I did see enough of the, oh, we're doomed, and oh, how could this ever happen? And I saw a couple people say it, oh, now we have to hold the light even brighter. It's like, folks, the light doesn't get much brighter. We have a floodlight pointed at us last night. Right. A floodlight pointed at us saying, as the American public, as the American population, we've got a choice in front of us. And in my opinion, neither one of them looks like a good road. We've got to, thank you to our Buddhist friends. We've got to find a middle way here somewhere.
For me, it's okay. So how many fast food restaurants exist in the United States? How many brands of toilet tissue exist in the United States? How many flavors of ice cream does Baskin-Robbins sell? We see a variety of options and choices in everything else in this country. But when it comes to this, it's an either or, and based upon the current consciousness of that either or, it's always going to be the country, the wealthy, the form of cognitive imperialism, et cetera, is always going to be to beat down somebody, beat down the trans people, beat down people of color, beat down the impoverished, beat down the people who are hungry and still don't have clean drinking. Like, it's going to always be beat them down, because this current system isn't made to support the actual population of the country. The current system props up and supports those who, quote unquote, have been elected to lead, but they're not leading. So if we're going to recognize options and choices everywhere else, then once again, it's okay, how do we shift our consciousness and recognize that this isn't working? Let's vision, let's pray, let's meditate, let's strategize, let's whatever we need to do to now say, how do we double this? How do we, just let's go with 3. How do we at least have 3 viable options of effective leaders to choose from?
Yeah.
Because currently this isn't working. We're all of 5 minutes away from cue the theme to Handmaid's Tale.
You're very right. You're very, I think you're very right there. And that is scary for so many of us. And I want to address something Linda's chimed in here with. I didn't change my mind about who to vote for. I can't vote for a convicted felon, liar, and misogynistic. Yes, absolutely. With you 100%. The current president has a positive history of accomplishments. Absolutely. Agree with you. However, I don't think he made a very good case to the American public that he is the best choice out there to continue this work. I really could not see that. There was one point where he's looking off to the left and the moderators are to the center, and my mind went, oh my God, he's going to glitch. He's going to freeze. He's lost. He doesn't know where he is. And
Right.
and though whether that's true or not, those types of perceptions are not what I think we need in a world leader currently.
Right. And for me, okay, so if this is the choice that we have at the present moment, okay, clearly one is attempting to create the Germany of you know who in the American version.
Yeah.
The other one, for a variety of reasons, has, like you said, there are things. So for me, it's like if someone injures, there's a laceration and it's bleeding profusely, the very first thing you do is stop the bleeding. You do some form of first aid to get you to the place where the experts can now tend to it effectively so you don't bleed out and die. We are in need of triage right now. So for me, it's a matter of, okay, who is the most effective Band-Aid to supply us and get us to a place where we now have time to actually stop the bleeding so that the body of America, the body of democracy, can not just exist and get by, which is what we're doing,
right?
But it can thrive in the way that we desire it to thrive. Like for me, it's, yeah, this is where we are. Yes. But now what? Because if we simply, okay, for the sake of conversation, we vote Biden in. Cool. Yay. Cheers. Celebrate. Yes. We have saved democracy. But have you? Because when did Project 2025 actually get written? And when did they start to come into and infiltrate various levels of government, etc.? When did Moms for Liberty come into? When did Libs of TikTok come into? Like all of these little subversive infections are there regardless of Biden or whomever. If it was Cornel West up there with the two of them, these infections are still present. So whoever is up there, if we don't also address the infections, if we don't also address these diseases, it doesn't matter if Biden has another 4 years or 44 years in office. The body is already infected by the consciousness of X, Y, and Z. We've got to address both and Electoral College and how it's failing, the way we elect people and realize that they're not effectively doing their job, but they still stay because of terms and Supreme Court where there are no term limits, and yet the system is broken, or the system is operating exactly how it was designed to operate, to profit and benefit a very small group of people. And if we are unwilling to change that system, then we're going to be right here having this discussion about two different, well, provided there's still democracy, we're going to still have this discussion in 4 years, and then 8 years, and then 16 years, and then 32 years, because the system isn't changing. So the options are always going to be same shit, just in a different package.
Yes. I need to get one of those dropping rubber chickens because you just said the word of the day. You know, our friend Linda says, how do we shore up the whole of the governance of our country, elections and beyond? And honestly, Linda, I don't think that's the objective. I've said this before, and I think I'm going to keep saying it, and it might not even happen in my time. I think that in some regards, it might be time for another congregational or constitutional Congress, where we have to bring in a body of learned people respected, learned people from across the spectrum of our country's culture.
Mm-hmm.
The original Constitution was written by a bunch of white guys giving Britain the finger, basically,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, it worked. It's a great document. It's an enduring document. It's one of the longest running governance documents in the world that as far as I'm aware. And all things come to an end, folks. Ernest Holmes said that God as first cause is forever taking on form and abandoning that form in order to take on new form. It would appear it might be time to let go of the form of the American Constitution. I know I'm going to get a lot of arrows thrown at me for saying something like that, but it might just be time to let go of that and create something new that is representative of the color that is in our country now that was not then, in the gender fluidity and awareness that is in our country now that we didn't know about back then, in the sexual orientation that was in our country but we weren't aware of or willing to address at that time. And I don't think it's until we actually have a true representative coalition style voice of all the various cultural aspects of America. And yes, that does include the far right, by the way. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to throw every MAGA hat wearing person in jail, or we don't exclude them. That perspective has to be included. But that's a long road. And I'm not even sure that we would have the stomach for it as a country at this point.
Right, which the idea is, well, we can acknowledge and recognize that everything else, science, evolved. The way we have learned and taught science has evolved. The way we have learned and taught medicine has evolved. Everything learned, revisited, modified, changed, evolved. And that continues because each of these sciences, each of these areas, laws, all of these things evolve and change. But when it comes to this, we act as though this is an unchanging, dead document versus because we change, the way we show up in this democracy should change, which means this document should be a living document that reflects the changing of, as you said, in the beginning, so all men are created equal. Well, if that was written today, all people are created equal.
Right.
Back then, when it was written, women were still considered property. It wasn't until, what was it, like 50 years ago?
You were only 3/5 of a man.
There's that. Yeah, I was getting ready to get to that. But like 50 years ago, women still had to get their husband's approval to buy stuff. And
right.
Wait, that's only 50 years or ish. So we recognize that all of these things change. But when it comes to this, the Electoral College, when it comes to this, Supreme Court, etc., we're stuck in it. So at least, to your point, at least let us begin to engage in the conversation of what it could look like to revisit the Constitution from where we are today. We are not talking about completely dissolving it and eradicating it. What we're talking about, how do we allow it to become a living document that evolves? And when there's a level of, when scientists get together to talk about changes in science and the understanding of this geosphere that we live on, there is a level of, do we invite flat earthers into the conversation to create curriculum and stuff? No, because they're wrong. But we do understand at least where they're coming from. And having an understanding of where they're coming from gives us better position to address this change. The more medicine, doctors, scientists understand what causes addiction, the greater the path of creating effective medical treatment, therapy, etc., to address addiction. If we're going to really create we have to understand what is with this group and cognitive dissonance. Why are they so, I don't even know what word to use. Why are they so bent on anything that is said regarding A, B, and C without questioning it, without fact checking? It is what it is, period. What's causing that? Because if we're not willing to even have that conversation, if, like Daryl Davis has conversations with Klansmen in order to help change their heart, their mind, their spirit, etc. The only way that kind of change can happen is I have to understand someone else's humanity to be able to see through their racism, etc. If we're not willing to at least have the conversation about what this is, then no, the Constitution is going to continue to be what it is. We're going to continue to deal with the threat and possible insurrections and all manner of. So yeah, we have to have the conversation. At least start with the conversation.
Yep. I want to point out Robin Rice is with us. Good to see you, Robin. Co-host of a couple of shows here on the network. And she says, at this point, we also have to trust and remember that we're voting for an administration. Joe himself may do nothing. And yes, we must address the system. And yes, right. I'm not gonna stay away from the polls. Personally, I am going to continue to beat that drum that says, get out there and vote, people. All right. We need everybody that can vote to vote. No questions about it. There's no, oh, I'm not interested. Oh, I don't do that. Oh, it doesn't affect me. Oh, mine doesn't count this year. Every single person has it, because you can't, and that's something I've learned along a lifetime now. You can't change a system from outside. Can't yell at people and tell them to change and expect them to change. We have to be involved in the process of it. And right now, the most important thing, I believe, is ensuring that the far right I hate using the word conservative because he doesn't feel very conservative. It doesn't, to me, represent true conservative values. But we have to make sure that we don't allow the far right to elect that man again.
Right. I keep reminding folks, if you've ever gone to the hospital for anything, to visit somebody or for surgery or whatever, how many people work in the hospital? Depending on the size of the hospital, it could be several thousand people. And every single one of them make that thing called hospital operate. When you're in the ER or the OR, there are several people in the OR other than just the surgeon. And depending on what's getting done, there might be 2 or 3 surgeons. And there's the anesthesiologists and the nursing staff. And it takes all of these people, including the person who is the escort to get you to and from. Like all of these parts go into making this thing function. In this country, there are a lot of folks who want one single individual. Everything is on the weight. Everything is on the shoulders. Everything falls on the president. This ain't a dictatorship. One single person does not govern the entire country. They have a role and a piece in the grand system. One piece. There's Congress, there's Senate, there's the mayor of your local township or borough, the school administration and city council. All of these pieces work in the grand facility hospital, the grand facility called United States. All of these pieces. And because we, the people, are in this facility, we also have to play our role in how this thing operates. And to acquiesce and say, well, it's not me and my doesn't count and whatever. Okay, so what is the other option? Because there were a lot of folks in Germany who were like, you talking about that little dude who wants to be a painter? Psh, whatever. And we see where that ended up.
Right.
So to simply throw up one's arms, and I understand the frustration, but to throw them up and just say whatever is to say, I am willing to go back to an era where brown folks not just don't even count as 1/5, 1/2, 1/3, a fraction of, but let's go to a point where they're not even human at all. Let's go back to women are barefoot pregnant in the kitchen. Let's go back to gays are in the closet and, forced lobotomy and sterilize and etc. To throw up one's hands is to acquiesce and say, in essence, I surrender and am okay with whatever happens.
Right.
That's unacceptable.
To deny the truth in our hour of need is to prove that we never really knew the truth to begin with.
Yeah.
And that's what Ernest Holmes as well, folks, if you don't recognize it. And that's what I'm hearing, right? We have to stay in the conversation. We have to stay in the process. It's a process. And in that process, there's going to be some missteps. There's going to be some places where, oh shit, that didn't work. Never mind. Erase, cancel. Let's reimagine this piece, and there's always going to be some stepping on some toes, but I want to. It feels like, okay, so you're getting me on the side of possibility. You're getting me on that side of a greater motivation. There's a question that's been floating recently in some New Thought circles, and I'm watching this and seeing where it wants to go. But there is the seed, the ember, if you will, of a movement, of a people's march type of event, a positivity, a march of positivity, a march to bring together religious scientists and unity folk and divine scientists and people from across the positivity movement, however you want to say it, New Thought, Science of Mind, all the different labels we have on it, and an initiative that seems to be taking a little bit of hold. Now, I know 20 years ago when I got into this, that would be like, no, taboo, you can't do that. I mean, you can do that yourself, but you can't mention us, and it can't be an organizational thing. And now it seems like there might be that just enough to help the New Thought movement break out of our navel gazing and bust into and really make a presence and show ourselves in the world of social action, of conscious action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in the magazine Spirituality and Health, I think it was the May and June issue, one of the contributors, I mean, he might be one of the editors, I don't know, but Rabbi Rami Shapiro wrote an article where he referenced, and this is, I'm paraphrasing because I don't quite remember, but he referenced this idea of there being a spiritual vaccine for this rising, quote unquote, pandemic. And I remember him specifically saying, because like this really struck me, he specifically made reference and said, the long arc of the moral universe doesn't bend of its own accord, right? Doesn't bend by itself, because he's quoting Dr. King. The long arc of the moral universe doesn't bend of its own accord, but rather it bends under the effort, or bends under the will, or whatever, under the power of those people who are choosing to bend it. Right? So for those who, because I remember that era of, this is what we do. It's your consciousness, rugged individualism. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, I got you. And we're supposed to just pray. I got you. And yet, where else in our lives does that, in and of itself, work? I'm hungry. I'm going to just pray for food. I'm thirsty. I'm going to just pray for water. We don't do it then. If we're not going to apply the same spiritual tools, practices to the basics of human, right? We don't go sit in a restaurant and just sit down and the server comes over and says, how may I help you? And you say, hush up now. I'm praying for my meal.
I'm praying you'll know what I want.
We don't do it then. So if we don't do it then, why are we doing it when it comes to, there's some, 247 some proposed anti-trans legislation but we'll just pray regarding that. We won't speak up. We won't speak out. We won't sacred activism, social. We won't. That's not our role. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
It has to be.
Our dear friend Linda, we the people must first better define the we. And it strikes me because I have a sense you've probably read Dr. Alexander's new book, Freedom from Discord.
I'm in it.
And I'm deep in it. Okay. Yep. I'm not quite finished yet, but I'm deep into it as well. And that's one of his defined, and we're going to have him on this show here coming up in just a few weeks, folks. So keep an eye out for that one. We're going to have Dr. David Alexander. Actually, he's going to be on the Tuesday show, New Thought Today, for a deep 1 hour in-depth dive where we're going to take a look at his new book. And in that, there it is, Freedom from Discord. And in that, he does point to, we have to go beyond the I piece of this and move into that collective we piece of it. And I remember very clearly being taught you never use the word we in a treatment. We've evolved off of those old beliefs too. But ultimately what I'm getting to is our belief system is invisible in this conversation at this point. If you want to know what, let's look at who's going to rallies. There's a hell of a lot of people wearing red hats, going to rallies, working themselves up, not afraid to shout their beliefs, not afraid to tell anybody with a microphone while they're standing in line. There's how many YouTube channels interviewing the MAGA people to hear what they believe, and we kind of don't believe them when we hear them saying it,
right?
But we're not willing to stand up and say what we believe and what we want to see and cast a vision for the world we'd like to see, other than in our own circles.
Mm-hmm.
And
exactly,
it's go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, if we had the suffragists not stepped in, stepped out, and spoken up and spoken out, where would women's rights be? If the gay liberation movement never stepped up, spoke out, where would LGBTQIA2+ rights, and where would recognition, where would any of that be? If civil rights had Dr. King, Malcolm X, Audre Lorde, all these people, James Baldwin, all had said, my place in this whole thing is to simply pray and be silent. And we stay with, where would we be? If the ACT UP movement hadn't gotten involved, where would the whole treatment process of those who experience HIV and AIDS, where would all of that be? It is a mandatory thing, even in the human body. When there is an infection or the threat of, then certain blood cells step in to counteract the illness, the disease, the virus. If we are unwilling to step in as the healing, we talk about practitioners in our movement are the healing arm of the church. And okay, but when does it move from just the arm to the torso, to the head, to the pelvis, to the leg? If we're going to bring healing to the planet, a world that works for all, then we, the people, includes everybody.
Yeah.
including, as we said, those wearing those red hats. They too are individualized expressions of God. Clearly, they don't know this. So, one, how do we know it for them? To the degree where when I go to the doctor or dentist, we'll say I go to the dentist for dental work, the dentist already has in their consciousness what a healthy mouth looks like. So when I get in the chair and open my mouth and they look in and they take x-rays and do what they do, they see the problem, cavity, but they also have the vision of, I know what to do to treat these cavities.
Yeah.
They're not running around like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you eat sugar, and I can't believe you don't brush, and I can't believe you don't floss. You're such a bad person. That's not what the dentist does. But many of us, that's we, the people, that's what we do.
Right.
Right? We point fingers and blame this candidate or that candidate, this party or that party, versus do we have a vision of a healthy, life-affirming system so that when we see the cavities and the gum disease and the whatever that is, we already know what to do to address it. We don't speak truth to power because that stuff isn't power. It's pseudo power, which is why it puffs its chest and acts like it does, because it's actually weakness. It's illness. Our invitation is to be the healing presence, which means have that discomfortable, uncomfortable, courageous conversation with Uncle Jeff, who is he may not wear the hat, but we know the rhetoric. Have that conversation with your minister or whomever of whatever denomination who gets up at the pulpit and says things that, one, either are directly homomisic, right? It's because it's not homophobia, because most of them aren't afraid. It's homomisia. It's hatred.
Right.
When you hear it, when you see transmisia, when you see racism, when you see any of this, when you hear any of it, coming from a place of, I know what the truth is, so I'm not going to speak truth to power. I'm going to speak truth powerfully. I'm going to represent truth powerfully. I am going to write emails to my local Congress folks and representatives and mayor, and I'm going to let them know this is what this world that works for all looks like. I want to know, where do you stand on this? Are you willing to have a conversation? If we're not willing to engage these people, we the people, if we're not willing to engage them and we're simply putting them on a pedestal, you are the president, you are a congressperson, you are Supreme Court, and we acquiesce, then we're doing the exact same thing that the German people did when they allowed him to become chancellor and then prime fifth dictator of the empire.
Right.
We cannot do that.
Did you? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. You said prime cis?
Sith.
Oh,
Star
Sith.
Wars.
Oh, okay. Sith. Okay.
Yeah. You know, I got to throw in my Star Wars, Star Trek. So
well, he would qualify as cisgender, so I wanted to make sure I was following.
Right. I got you.
Prime Sith Chancellor of okay. Now I'm with you.
Darth Hitler, right? Like, that's what they did. They acquiesced and allowed him to become chancellor.
Yes.
Same thing in Star Wars would happen with Palpatine, and then became, right? If we really want to create a world that works for all, and I mean really, then yes, we have to speak up. We have to hit the streets. Now, that's going to be different for different people. Like looking at the civil rights movement, everybody didn't march. Everybody didn't do that, but everybody had a role to play. Whether that was stuffing envelopes, making phone calls, canvassing to get people to vote, people had a role. They didn't just sit back in their homes, twiddling their metaphysical thumbs, hoping and wishing, for the fairies and the crystals and the whatnot to change the planet. They got out with their crystals in their pockets, if that's what it was, but they got out there and did stuff. They sat at the counters while people poured hot coffee on them.
Yeah.
They marched in the street, women's rights. We have to be willing to be vulnerable and make change.
Reverend, yes. We did get an amen from Robin a while back as you were sharing as well. So it's interesting. Tuesday was primary day here in Colorado. And it was really interesting because we have the unique claim to fame that Lauren Boebert represents Colorado, and jumped from one congressional district to another this past year, and a lot of Democrats felt like, amen, right on, we're going to get rid of her. She's not going to win that district. And from the first day, people were calling her carpetbaggers, and I think a lot of Democrats went, cool, we're done with her. She won the primary. She's going forward to represent, and there is not a strong Democrat in that district. Right. Here in my district, the Democrat was the Democratic primary, and we vote for our within party here. Right. You're not crossing over party lines here, and there was no real race for anything in the Democrat, so it was almost a throwaway vote. In some regards, I did hear people saying, it's a throwaway election. It doesn't matter which Democrat you're going to vote for. In this district, the Democrat's going to win. In that district, the Republican's going to win. So it would appear that that there is still this place of there's still a large population that seems to want to play the game of popularity of popular culture type politics rather than actually doing the work. And we're about out of time, so I know we might not be able to answer this question, but we can write letters, we can stand up and march, we can start speaking and having conversations with those around us. From your perspective, what's the number one thing people in the New Thought movement can do to move the needle?
The number one thing I would say is, if you are going to actually tout what the philosophy says, God is all there is, and we are individualized expressions of it. So therefore, the power, the presence, the whatever, like Ernest Holmes said, whatever is true of God is true of you. The only God that any of us would ever know is the one that we embody. Never forget that. Meister Eckhart said, between me and God, there is no between. I invite everybody in New Thought to recognize the power that you have in mind, body, and spirit. Embody it, be convicted of it, and show up as it. When we say treat and move your feet, put it into action. That means your whole mental equivalent, your thoughts, your beliefs, your words, your communication, your emotions, your feelings, and your actions. So when we converse about this, say what the issue is, but then start talking about what can solutions be. When you have city council meetings and stuff in your area, your region, school board meetings or whatever, show up. Even if you don't feel like saying anything, show up and hold consciousness in the space. At least you are present in the room where it happened, and you are doing what we say we do with the teaching. Just to simply sit back and say, thoughts and prayers, I will hold it in consciousness, etc., etc. If that worked to the degree where we claim it worked, we wouldn't be here having this conversation right now. It's not enough.
Right. Yep. Beautiful. There it is, folks. You've heard the truth right from God's mouth. Dr. Raymont, you'll come back again, I take it? Yes?
Oh, of course. Yes.
Of course. Quick good morning from our friend Maria. This is her favorite podcast. Thank you, Maria. We appreciate that. And holding the vibration of love in action. Yes, exactly.
So it is.
And so it is. All right, and we're way over time, but before we go, I've got two more quick things. Number one, if I come to Baltimore, can we go shopping together?
Well, I'm not in Baltimore though. I live in Delaware, but yeah, I can drive to Baltimore and we can go. Yeah.
Okay. Because the number 2 is I don't ever want you to leave that shirt unattended around me. Because I will pick that up. That will go home with me if you leave it unattended. And
I hear that.
And I've seen a few others like that where I was like, ooh, I could get away with that. I like that. So I think we have to go shopping together sometime.
Amen. Amen.
Right. Folks, thanks for tuning in today. This is Ministers Talking Shit on the New Thought Media Network. It happens every Friday morning at 7 a.m. Mountain. That's 9 o'clock if you're in Ohio. And we appreciate you being a part of what we're doing here. Listen for this as a podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms. And please tune in again to more of New Thought Media Network. We've got a full day of programming today and throughout the weekend. Until next time, we wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.